Tonight, we have a special treat. We are joined not by one, but two Hunter icons, Danny Buderus and Mike Rabbitt. Now, Danny has been the heart and soul of the Newcastle Knights for more than a decade and is regarded as one of the most inspirational and respected players in the history of the game. And because it's been such an illustrious career, I think it's worth mentioning some of those highlights. Now, Danny made his NRL debut for the Newcastle Knights in 1997 and went on to become the club's most capped player when he surpassed his good friend Andrew John's previous record of 249 games in round 22 of the 2013 season. The Knights hooker retired at season's end after playing 257 games. Danny spent 3 seasons from 09 to 11 in the English Super League, where he played 82 games for Leeds and including their 2011 Super League Championship. Danny credits his time in England for prolonging his football career and allowing him to play in the NRL at the ripe old age of 35 years of age. Among his representative honours, Danny has played 24 tests for the Kangaroos, made 21 State of Origin appearances for New South Wales, and he is the last man to captain the Blues to a series win in 2005. I'm sure that's an honour he'd like to pass on, but anyway, he's got that. He won the Dally M medal in 2005 and was a premiership player for both the Knights in 2001 and Leeds, as I said, in 2011. Now, Mike Rabbitt is so well known as NBN sports presenter and as a senior executive at the station, and so well known for his charitable works around the region, he needs almost no introduction. In which case, ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together to welcome two of the Hunters' favourite stars, Danny Buderus and Mike Rabbitt.
Thank you, Barry.
Big build-up, Rabs.
Do you feel old?
Oh, I don't know what. I feel young up here, actually.
In actual fact, it was about 16 years ago, I don't know how we got out there, but up there somewhere, and it was on the Tuesday after the grand final.
Yes.
And I had the pleasure of emceeing that, and there was purportedly 100,000 people out in Civic Park. I don't think you get 100,000 people. We'd introduced all the team, and Chief and Malcolm really had held up the trophy, and Steve Crow was at the back of me saying, "Introduce this young kid." I said, "Who?" He said, "Danny Buderus." I said, "Who in the hell's Danny Buderus?" He said, "He's the next big thing." Steve Crow was Nostradamus.
Mate, you're spot on. I was dying at that stage there. I was only a young kid, 19, and I got to do the parade that went all the way through Beaumont Street, up Derby Street, and loved it. And then I came here and went up on the stage there, and all the team got presented, and they're carrying on, throwing the trophy around, and here's me. I'm about 10 metres away, just waiting to get my name called up. And it didn't happen until you called it up right at the death, and mate, I was under the pump there. I thought, who's this Harry just sitting out the back here? So, anyway.
There was a couple of funny things on that day because Dave Williams from Tooheys blew up. He said, "Have a look at the television," when we did the live telecast. And he said, "They're friggin' drinking VB." Now, Dave was the main man for Tooheys. He said, "They're drinking VB." So along the line of these MGBs, were all these people handing out Tooheys new to all these people. And Butts, tracksuit bottom. He said, "Rabs, I won. I haven't been to bed yet."
They were drinking anything, Rabs, VB or Tooheys. But also Lee Jackson lost his ring. It's
That's right.
It's still never been found. He was doing that to the fans and slipped off. So someone's got a Lee Jackson ring out there. So
a hell of an introduction to you to the big time. You're a kid that came down from Taree with great aspirations and great expectations. Was this a planned scenario that this was going to be Danny Buderus' life?
I guess I always knew what I wanted to be, and that was to be a rugby league player. I started playing the game at 4. My mum was coach. She used to tape the fingernails up and, "Come on, boys." My mum's a lady.
You tape your fingernails up when you play netball.
Well, that's what she did. So it was great. So I learned off my mum. I've got a brother that's 22 months old, or 2 years. So I always played up a couple of grades, and But I was a kid with big dreams, and I came down here at 16 and I went to school at St Francis Xavier. So I was a public school boy up at Chatham High and came to a Catholic school here at St Francis Xavier. And they're probably worst kids here at St Francis Xavier. They love a good time. So I learned all about that pretty quickly.
Just upset all the Catholics.
But I learned how to tie a tie, which is still this day can do it. So it's also, I lived in a family out there. So I was 16, I grew up pretty quick, and it's been a great ride. And to think that now, 250 odd games later, I still remember the first day I got here, I got on a bike and I rode to Marathon. I was like the Field of Dreams and said, oh, how good is this? This could be anything. So that's still memories. And all I've tried to do since 97 is emulate that day that we had here. We did it in 2001, that was enormous as well, but I think for 97, as a Nova Castrian, to feel that and what the town and what the team meant to the town, it was sensational. And and got a little taste of it again this year down there at the Sydney Football Stadium, or what I can remember. It was 60 odd busloads down there, and it was awesome. So, that's all looking forward to next year, and Wayne's done a great job with the team.
When you go back to those early days with Mum and Dad and have a look at how it's worked out now, was there a plan? Had you set yourself a plan to, this is what I'm going to do, I'm going to achieve this by this?
My first thing was to make the Australian Schoolboys in 95, so I was year 12 and I had 1 year to do that. My studies probably suffered a little bit moving mid-year. Like I said, year 11 at Chatham and come down here for year 12, so I had to swap a few subjects. But at the end, I was just thinking, wow, I've just made the Australian Schoolboys team and to go on to play a professional football. So that was my first plan. And then the second thing was, I wanted to have a job when I left school. I didn't want to go straight into rugby league because I lived with Owen Craigie for a couple of years, and Owie probably wasn't the best role model at that time. So
So you've probably seen him move from Ashley Gordon to Jabba the Hutt.
That's right. So I used to see we loved a little midnight raid down the service station, so I knew what to do. But that was my first thing to work, and I understood the value of $1, and then I went into full-time footy, and I always respected the players that were there. Obviously there was the Chiefs, the Johnses, and I had to change tact from being a halfback, which I was, because you had the Kamali boys and the Johns boys, and then Mal really threw me into being a hooker. And I was very lucky because at the time, the hooking positions just changed. It changed, it revolutionised a little bit. It was an attacking point, it was a focal point. So I really enjoyed that part of the game, and yeah, it's just all kicked on from there.
But may we say, at the same time that you made those changes to rugby league, coming into the number 9, Steve Walters probably a little bit just prior to you, and Steve had a season with the Newcastle Knights, but you were the one that probably changed the face of the number 9.
I think being a halfback in an old 5'8", I guess that's where a lot of the players are now. You've got to have a bit of speed out of there, but you got to like that defensive side of things, and I didn't mind that part of it. And it's fun, and I obviously had the best player in the world just to the left of me or to the right of me, and that's Andrew. And that's why I never developed a kicking game, Rabs, because why would I have a kick when you got this guy here that's doing 10 out of 10 kicks all the time?
Well, you mentioned Owen Craigie, and it might have been a little bit difficult to live with Owie every now and then, but the number 7 had his own idiosyncrasies. Was it hard to keep your mind on football the whole time when you were around Joey?
Yeah, well, we used to pick Joey up every day to go to training. The Merriweather, Mark Hughes, I live with Mark Hughes as well. So that was good fun. And so Joey, the best thing about Joey is whatever was going on outside of that life and outside of the football field, that white stripe, as soon as he got on, that was his home and that was his office. And that's what I've always respected about him. And, you hang around him, you know all about what goes off the field, but I respect him, how he handles that stuff on the field, because, obviously he's well-documented a few dramas there. Wasn't
too long before you'd made the transition from just being a potentially very good player to being a very good player, and obviously 2001 capped off a great season for the Newcastle Knights. Representative duties came your way with State of Origin. How did you prepare for the transition from regular NRL matches to the step up to State of Origin and indeed playing for your country?
Yeah, I played for my country first in 01, and then Origin came 02, 03, and then I became captain in 04. And that was the biggest thing for me, becoming captain, because no one in the world thought I was captain material, because I understood that maybe I had a few traits with my actions, but to be able to turn that into a communication and to lead on, in the huddles and meetings and team meetings, that was all new to me. And I still remember Brad Fittler, the team was, we were training, and a couple of guys were mucking around a little bit and cutting corners and things, and he just looked at me, and I said, I looked at him back like that, and then he just stared at me it just kept on going. I just sort of put it in the back of my mind, and then he just pulled me up after training and said, mate, don't ever let that happen again. This is your watch. You're the captain. And I still think about that now, and that's stuck with me the whole way through my career. And so in 04, I captained Freddie, and 05, I captained Joey. So that was fun.
How do you tell Freddie and Joey what to do?
Exactly. You let them guys go. But yeah, Joey's obviously the social captain, and his room was where it's all at in the bonding session. So it was good fun, and I learned a lot about what happens off the field, because like I said, I had maybe some traits with my actions, but that part of developing that into words, and I'm still doing that now, is that leadership thing.
So Danny Buderus was able to bring his own innovation, and we've got to mention innovation about 3 or 4 times tonight. So with those camps, and obviously there's the old saying, what's on tour stays on tour. But is there any couple of characters, 1 or 2 characters out of those State of Origins, the bonding sessions became legendary? Was there any tales that you might be able to tell us out of those State of Origin days?
It's great going on tour. When you go over to England, it's sensational. You live with each other, and we used to have tea parties so that was for some reason, Joey used to put the beers into a pot of tea, and so we'd have tea because we were in England, and everyone's at a tea party back at Joey's, and then we all go back to his room, and that was our little thing, and it was a bit of fun, and we bonded in the rooms, and all the doors were open, and but one of the things in 04, I did become captain, and that was that debacle. I don't know if anyone remembers. It was probably when we had a couple of blokes sent home, and that phone call that got made, and a few of the boys come up to me and asked me whether they should go. Can they go out to the cross? And I said, mate, listen, I'm new at this. I'm your captain. I'll go tell Gus, which is Phil Gould, that you want to go into the cross. And they said, yeah, go do that. Just egging me on. Go do it. So I asked him, and Gus went, no way in the world you're going. Everyone's going straight to bed. So he got back there and said, boys, nah, straight to bed. Anyway, they all went out. And then all hell broke loose the next day, obviously. And that was my first initiation of being a leader, I guess, because we had to just get rid of it in 2 days' time, because we had an Origin to play in 3 more days. So that was my first initiation of it all, and I learned a lot from that day.
Were you involved in the infamous Wayne Pearce horse riding, or was that a little bit before you?
That was before me, but that's how they used doing something different, bonding like that. But Junior was apparently pretty good with this. He used to have guys, before they ran out, he'd give them a name like Oyster, because you're so sharp, you'll just cut them up. And to someone like pretty corny stuff, like I think Matt Gibbs was, you're an old boot because you're tough with leather and things like this. And that's how bad it was. And he went around to every one of them, and then they ran out. So they reckon Junior was a bit of a class act and in that sort of sense. But all these players, the best coach that I've probably come across in Origin is probably Gus, and the intensity that he brings. Is he would look at you in the eye when he's delivering a speech, and it was up to you to look away, or you can just eyeball him back. And then after he did look away, then you think, oh, I'll pass the first test. And he's the sort of things that he instills Origin. I'm actually going down to Sydney tomorrow for an emerging blues camp, which is great, and I'm glad to be a part of that now and talking to a couple of these young guys.
Danny, given that time as captain of not only New South Wales, but indeed your country and the Newcastle Knights, what have you gleaned out of that you can take into future life?
Yeah, it's all about preparation, and your actions are everything for me at the moment. That's obviously being a dad, and then I was the oldest player in the NRL this year at 35, and then I had to sort of communicate with guys that are 18, 19 in my team, which is hilarious, like Arku. Trying to communicate with Arku when he's at his best is enormous. So I've learned all about that, and fitting in. I've always worked well with a lot of different guys, and no matter what they're into, and that's what I try to get the best out of them for our team. And we had a camp, an army camp this year, which is great. We had Mark Donaldson there, the VC, and I was just talking to Tim Owen about it then before, and those guys, they wrote a message to us before that Melbourne game. It was just 2 sentences, and it just resonated with me so much. It was just like, there's no big pump-up speeches before battle. And that's where we got to. And I can just picture those guys going into their battle in the army in a helicopter and a plane, and they're not saying a word because they've done the work, they trust each other, and they're just honest with each other, and they know they're going to do the job. And that's where we were the last 4 or 5 games of the season. We just put the boots on and ran out and played.
Well, how much does it go back to the statement by Alan McMahon, be the player that other players want to play with? That is the
Yeah.
club motto, and that was set from day one. How important is that to the club and the players?
That's everything. We talk about it all the time, and you got that's the creed, I guess, and that's what you got to live by. And once again, I was talking to Tim, and that's what a lot of businesses probably have as well, is a bit of a creed, and that's. And not, we'll have blokes yell it out as we walk out, be the player. And that's all I've tried to be is growing up. I'm not the flashiest, I'm not the quickest, but I'll try and be the best teammate going out there.
Well, we'll talk more about that later on because you're just undersizing yourself because you are a dead set legend. With all the wonderful accolades and everything and the great playing career, there comes a life, whether it's in sport or in business, that things turn a little bit sour. And in 2008, probably things turned a little bit sour for you regarding the Newcastle Knights. It wasn't the way you wanted to be a one-club man all your life, and you have been here in Australia, but it was interrupted by that, which you said resurrected your career in some aspects, having to go to London, to England to play. How big a disappointment at that particular time was the fact that you knew that 2008 was going to be your last season at that stage with the Newcastle Knights?
Yeah, I still remember it. It's the only time I've actually physically sobbed. It was, I cried. And I got injured against North Queensland. I did my bicep and just realised that's the last time I'm ever going to play for the Knights. This is the last time I'm going to run out on that field. And that was all over. And to get that call off Wayne going back 2 years ago to come back, it meant the world to me. You know, I moved heaven and earth just to come back because I was obviously contracted to Leeds. And I'll never break a contract, and that's the only time because to finish in my own town was enormous. But that was another thing about leadership. But going back to 2008, it was tough. It was really tough. It was sort of felt like we were by ourselves, and we're sort of sitting ducks, and we didn't have any support. And obviously, that's where the club wanted to go. But for me, I knew it was my time to move on, and I didn't want to see that happen. And as the club was going in a different direction, but it's turned full circle now, and it's a great business. It's a great place to be a part of. Our membership's going great. The town's starting to believe in the place again. And it's a great time to be a Newcastle Knight. The innovation, it's two, to go to England and play with Leeds, a great club. How important is that going to be down the track? And obviously you've been able to come back and finish on your terms. Yeah, well, you can take your name, I guess, over to the other side of the country, and they're great people over there. The English guys, the Yorkshiremen, and there was a really good vibe in that town. That's a very, very successful team. Were they giving you a bit of stick about the cricket, though? Yes, it was awful in the Ashes, and don't feel sorry for the English, I tell you. Start sledging them, keep sledging them, yeah, because they just hammer us over there. So, but I met so many wonderful people. I played with guys that I respected so much, like a Jamie Peacock. If anyone gets to know a bloke called Jamie Peacock, he's got a saying: it's better than better than dying on your knees. Sorry, dying on your feet than living on your knees. And he's got that, and that's the way he lives by. That's his motto in life. And if he's got something to say, he'll say it. He's a very passionate. He's a warrior in a rugby league term. So I learned a lot off him and Kevin Sinfield. Probably one of my regrets was probably chasing referees around when I was a little bit younger and a little bit naive to think that I was right and I could change the course of a referee's decision. Where I went over there and it just chilled right out. And it is a regret of mine that I did do that to referees, but sometimes they need it, Rabs, you know. Huh? No doubt about that. And, you came back, and I probably think all of us in this room specifically and all Newcastle Knights fans, when we found out that Danny Buderus was coming home to play with the Newcastle Knights, that the whole scenario of this town and the team lifted from the fact that you were coming home to finish your career here. And I think you've enjoyed your footy the last couple of years, albeit the last 9 minutes of your career. Yeah, that's right. I was laying in a hospital bed in April, May, just thinking this is the biggest failure ever coming back. And it was. This is my second back operation this year. Last year we didn't make the semi-finals, and I was worried, and I was going to do everything I can to finish on a good note. And I really, really enjoyed the last 2 months of the season and going into September, because it was a blast. And to see Wayne, work under Wayne in September, who's a guy has had the most success in September, was amazing. And he just comes alive. And it was a great way to finish the career until the Roosters game. Bad way to go out, sad way to go out, but a glittering career. All of a sudden, you're not playing anymore. You haven't got a job at this stage. It's a worry. So you retired. Well, more the you can afford to retire and not ever work again, by the way, but more the point what's it feel like? I'm going to get a real job. That's the thing. It's a scary thing where the 9 to 5 or whatever it is, it's that luxury that you do have being a sportsman, but it's nerve-wracking, I guess. It's about that time probably walking into, like I said, riding my bike over to the stadium as a young kid. Now I'm going back into the workforce, and a bit of a, I've got to be passionate about something because I've been passionate about something for the last 15 years. So every time I wake up now, I've got to really like what I'm doing.
I think the last person that had a job and still played footy was Mark Glanville. I think he was working in real estate.
Because he was the tightest man in the game. Yeah.
Still is.
Yeah. His muffler in his car is that big. Yeah.
Does footy prepare you for life after footy? Do clubs look after their players and say, well, okay, it's not going to be long, you're now 30 to 35, we've got to look after you? Do clubs go out of their way to prepare you for life after footy?
Yeah, absolutely. From now, you've seen the NYC, which is the under-20s, they have to study or they've got to go to work. And the amount of money, the millions of dollars they put into welfare and education that the NRL have now is amazing. And the off-field things that happen, that really hurts because they're doing everything they can to stop this stuff happening. And the guys that are coming through now, it's the education that they've got and leads them into life after footy. And that probably will stop that depression and things of going, oh, what am I going to do? Because that was a big thing for the last probably generation, the last 10-year players. That's been a big thing is what am I going to do now? So the more you get yourself out there, communicate with your sponsors, communicate with your town, be a part of the town, it's going to be a lot more beneficial for these guys. And that's what I'm trying to tell these young guys, be a part of your town.
Would you like to stay in footy, or would you like to get in to try and innovate something along? It's not quite innovation, but it's three. I got it in. Christina, I got it in. So, or do you want a complete break from footy and try something different?
Well, I thought I did want a complete break from footy, but I don't. I've just worked that out in the last couple of weeks.
He's making a comeback.
Not in that, not pulling the boots on, but it gets to you, it grinds you down, but it's my passion. I love it. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to keep a foot in the door and learn under obviously one of the greatest coaches in Wayne. I'd be silly not to. Go through a bit of corporate stuff, do a bit of leadership stuff, and then I've got a job in a quarry, which is totally left field.
Oh, great.
Business development, yeah. So I'll go down that and have a look at that. But like I said, I've got to wake up and be passionate about it every day. So I'm looking forward to it.
All right, 60 seconds with Danny Buderus. Your fondest memory in rugby league?
In the grand final. Has to be, because you go through so many ups and downs.
Biggest disappointment?
Pardon? Biggest disappointment? Probably having to leave. Oh, wait.
Toughest player you played against?
Petro or Shane Webke?
Best player you played with? Yeah, it's a hard question.
Yeah, it's an easy one. But in saying that, I've always, the lessons that I've learned, let's just say Paul Marquette or Billy Peden, they're two guys that I've learned a lot of on the training paddock because they just bat above their weight.
And finally, we'll dispense with the 60 seconds. I know your best mate's going through some hard times at the moment, Mark Hughes. How have you reacted to that, and what are the lessons that you're learning out of the battle that Mark's going through at the moment?
It definitely makes you stronger as a relationship, as a mate, but he's using his footy mentality, which is you get hurt, you get it fixed, and then you do your rehab, and then hopefully you're going to be okay. And that's how positive he is. He's starting up a foundation, and it's his sort of way, he's thinking probably God's own way of saying that you're the man to head up a foundation. So he's really passionate about it, and I'm sure that in the years to come, there'll be some good functions going forward.
Well, ladies and gents, I've had the pleasure of being involved with the Newcastle Knights since probably 1980, 81, 82, when Lee Moore and the Angry Ants started to talk about getting a team into the competition. Then obviously since they came in. If this bloke is not the nicest bloke that I've ever met in rugby league and one of the toughest, most brilliant players, then he hasn't been born yet. Danny Buderus, you are an absolute credit not only to you and your family, but to the Newcastle Knights and the sporting fraternity in general. We wish you all the very best in retirement. We really appreciate you being our very special guest tonight. And ladies and gentlemen, would you please thank Danny Buderus for being our special guest.
Thanks, mate. Cheers. Thanks, mate.